This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi highlights China's development in his UN General Assembly address. An update on the status of 300 captives rescued in Nigeria's northern city of Kaduna. And we sample a popular delicacy in Ghana in our continuing focus on Africa's favorite snacks. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are more stories you can expect in the hour. What Uganda is planning to do to attract more international tourists. And we put the spotlight on China's contribution to the development of the education sector in Africa. We'll begin with the latest from the UN General Assembly meeting in New York. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has used his address at the general debate to highlight China's development since the founding of the People's Republic 70 years ago. Without mentioning the United States by name, Wang also said China would not be threatened by external forces. CGTN's Nathan King reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
China has turned itself from a poor and closed country to an open one that has lifted over 850 million people out of poverty. That was the State Councillor Wang Yi's message to the world as China celebrates 70 years since the founding of the People's Republic. China is more confident and capable, said Wang, and in an apparent rebuke to the US, he said Beijing would not be bullied.
Let me make it very clear. China is a country with a 5,000-year-old civilization, 1.4 billion hard-working people, and a vast land of 9.6 million square kilometers. China will not ever be cowed by threats or subdued by pressure. Facing rampant unilateralism, we should not just sit idly by.
Criticizing unilateralism and protectionism, Wang vowed China would uphold its core interests.
Tariffs and the provocation of trade disputes, which upset global industrial and supply chains, undermine the multilateral trading regime and global economic order. They may even plunge the world into a recession.
Calling for the US to return to the Iran nuclear deal, Wang also urged a bilateral solution to the Kashmir situation and no change to its status quo. Development, he said, was the key to solve all global problems. And while China is about to eradicate poverty, he said Beijing is not trying to impose their model on anyone.
I want to conclude with a quote from President Xi Jinping. Our world is full of both hope and challenges. We should not give up our dreams just because the reality around us is too complicated. We should not stop pursuing our ideals because they seem out of touch or out of reach. Let us work tirelessly to promote the purposes and points of the UN Charter and work together to build a shared community for mankind.
And just before he took to the podium, State Councillor Wang Yi sat with his counterpart from Kiribati. The Micronesian nation is switching formal diplomatic relations from Taipei to Beijing. That follows a similar move by the Solomon Islands, who just over a week ago's cabinet voted to do the same. Nathan King, CGTN, at the United Nations in New York.
Well, also on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, Wang Yi and his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, have agreed to strengthen strategic cooperation in the new era. Noting this year marks the 70th anniversary of the establishment of China-Russia diplomatic relations, Wang said bilateral ties are embracing new opportunities and faced with new challenges as well. Echoing Wang, Lavrov said his country is ready to have close communication and hold grand celebrations of the anniversary. The two sides also exchanged views on major global and regional issues. They also agreed to further step up coordination. Meanwhile, in his first speech at the UN Assembly, Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok expressed his country's commitment to promote global peace.
The people of Sudan are seeking to start a new phase. different from the past 3 decades. Reaching out to all our neighbors and the world, guided by the principles of humanity and our wisdom, we are committed to the principles of international law and international human rights law in order to eliminate discrimination, exploitation, injustice, and inequality.
Also speaking at the General Assembly was Algerian Foreign Minister Sabri Boukadjoum. Boukadjoum warned the international community against interfering in Libya's affairs to allow the country to find its own solutions.
Algeria reaffirms that the Libyan crisis can only be settled by Libyans themselves and the neighboring countries, and that weapons and foreign interventions cannot be appropriate when it comes to reaching a settlement.
Meanwhile, in Rwanda, the first group of 66 migrants evacuated from Libya have arrived in a transit facility in Gashora district, awaiting further resettlement. More refugees are expected over the coming weeks in a deal agreed and set up by the African Union, the United Nations Refugee Agency, and Rwanda. CGTN's Jen Keo has the story.
It was a big sigh of relief for the first group of migrants who arrived in Rwanda from Libya.
Alhamdulillah. We thank God. We cannot explain the life back there in Libya. There is fighting and we couldn't even sleep peacefully at night. Now we feel safe.
Under a deal agreed recently between Rwanda, the United Nations Refugee Agency, and the African Union, refugees will continue to be evacuated from Libya in the coming weeks. They will then be accommodated in a facility in Gashora, a district some 60 kilometers from Rwanda's capital, Kigali.
This is a fantastic gesture of solidarity with refugees from the people and the government of Rwanda. It is also an example of African leadership that I hope many other countries will follow. This demonstration of solidarity and responsibility sharing will save a lot of life and will give hope to many refugees while still stranded in Libya.
Even if we are a small country but we have enough capacity, we cannot say that since the country is small we cannot get more refugees. We have 149,000, we are getting more and more, no problem.
The group is predominantly from the Horn of Africa, including women and children. In Libya they faced detention, the threat of trafficking and even death in their attempts to cross the Mediterranean.
I'm very happy in Rwanda, but I have wife and baby, and Libyans have not left and anything. But I'm very happy in Rwanda.
The entire group has been granted asylum seeker status, pending an assessment of their refugee claims. Further solutions will then be pursued for refugees, including resettlement. Others may voluntarily return to their home countries if they feel it is safe to do so. Jane Keo, CGTN.
We move to Egypt, where thousands of Egyptians flocked to the streets of Cairo to show their support for President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as he returned from the UN General Assembly in New York. The rallies are meant to counter protests against el-Sisi's 5-year rule. The president has also warned against attempts to discredit his administration. Rare demonstrations took place last week in response to a call of action from an Egyptian businessman living in self-imposed exile in Spain. He accused el-Sisi of allegedly wasting public funds. Police have arrested around 1,000 people in connection with the protests. Well, tens of thousands of people from across Senegal gathered in the capital for the opening of a huge mosque claimed to be the largest in Africa. Huge traffic built up on the highways leading to the site, where some people had been camping out 2 days before inauguration. Unable to get inside, thousands of faithful unrolled their prayer mats outside. The structure has a capacity of hosting about 30,000 worshippers. The mosque has been built by the Murid Brotherhood, which says it did not receive any external support outside the Muslim community. Work on the mosque began a decade ago on a piece of land donated by the government. An Islamic Institute residence and museum are scheduled to be added in the future. We move to South Africa now, where fixing up some of the harm done to the planet has come up for discussion at the 8th World Conference on Ecological Restoration in Cape Town. Delegates are seeking ways to advance the science and practice of ecological restoration. CGTN's Travis Andrews was there and he filed this report.
It's no secret that the Earth is in urgent need of some restoration work, whether it's global warming or even overfishing. The pressures being piled on this planet are almost unprecedented. But it's not too late to fix it. That's at least the broad consensus amongst most delegates attending this year's World Conference on Ecological Restoration, which is not only about identifying the problems, it's also about finding solutions.
Often a neglected area of restoration programs.
The Western Cape provides the ideal setting for this event. With the worst drought in over 100 years, the region is still recovering. But when it comes to restoration of water resources, the agricultural sector has already been identified as the ones with a key role to play.
There's so much water that comes from their winery systems. So after they've produced wine or they processed wine, the wastewater that comes from that, they need actually to be cleaned up. You can use the wetlands, you can use other methods and make that water actually usable. So the adaptation part is what's actually very important.
Scientists argue the restoration of land and water resources, when implemented effectively, can lead to improved human health, food security, and climate change resilience. And it's easy to see why. A simplified hydro system such as this seems like an ideal measure that can be introduced in the home to produce power. But with the right flow, municipalities and even companies can play a future role as independent power producers for a greener country.
So we've got an extra reservoir before the water comes to Bloemfontein. That reservoir has a potential of 350 kilowatt. We at the moment are busy with the Eskom utility to do a feasibility study from their side, and if they give us the go-ahead, we can actually put a turbine on there as well, and then we would like to put that back into the grid.
Including an eye towards increasing...
The event is mostly solution-driven as well, finding the best ways to maximize land restoration, water and community resilience, making the relationship healthier between people and nature. With ocean acidification, coral bleaching and overfishing, the marine ecosystem is also in need of urgent restoration.
Restoration must happen. It's time to happen. It's time to restore, which is the MERS's motto. And it is doable in many environments, including the red coral. And there are many examples in the Mediterranean. Look at Spain, for example. Yeah.
And recreational divers have become the ones that are increasingly playing an important role in restoration work under the sea, including replanting coral species and building artificial reefs, which done in conjunction with the work being done above makes our planet that much more healthier and resilient. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Well, it's time for us to take a short break. When we return, here's more news that you can expect. An update on the status of 300 captives rescued in Nigeria's northern city of Kaduna. And we put the spotlight on China's contribution to the development of the education sector in Africa.
At the Great Wall of China.
Ni hao.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Well, in Nigeria, investigations are still ongoing after police rescued over 300 captives, many in chains, and most of them were children. They were reportedly being held in a building that housed an Islamic school in the northern Nigerian city of Kaduna. CGTN's Daniela Pearson reports.
It's not clear how long they've been held captive here in Nigeria's Kaduna city. There are hundreds. Some are men, but most are boys, aged from around 5 to their late teens. According to local media reports, they've been tortured, starved, and sexually abused. The sores on one boy's back appears consistent with injuries inflicted by a whip.
And the children gathered here are from all over the country, across all over the country. They were here, some of them were even chained. They were used, dehumanized. You can see it yourself.
The rescued children have been moved to a temporary camp at a stadium in Kaduna. Some parents have already retrieved their children, but attempts to find them all are still underway. The police report that the building where the captives were found houses an Islamic school. 7 people thought to be teachers were arrested in a raid on Thursday.
This place is neither a rehab or an Islamic school because you can see it yourself. Small children, some of them are brought from our neighboring countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Ghana, and the rest.
Islamic schools, known as al-Majiris, are common across the largely Muslim north. There have been numerous reports by the Nigerian media that the government plans to ban the schools. For years, these institutions have been dogged by allegations of abuse. There are even accusations that some children have been forced to beg on the streets. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
We're staying with that story, and journalist Joseph Peter now joins us from Kaduna for more developments on this story. Thank you so much for joining us, Joseph. What is the latest? Obviously a very disturbing story that we've just heard coming out of Nigeria. Could you give us the latest on what the developments are now?
Okay, thank you. From my side here in Kaduna State, I was in touch with the DSP, Yakubu Sabo, the PPR of police, Kaduna State, this morning, and he told me that more investigation is still going on. They want to ascertain the authority, like the license of the school, if the school is really licensed to carry out operation, that to carry out the teaching for the Amajiri. And secondly, they want to find out if the courses given out to the students, the courses carried out in the school, if they are approved by the authorized bodies. And they have made 6 arrests, the owner of the school and the other 5 staff of the school. So everything, they're still under investigation.
Joseph, when this plays out, what response do you think that is going to take place from the authority? How do you believe they're going to respond to this?
Well, he actually told me this morning that after the investigation, they're going to hand them over to the court. So this court now are going to, after the judgment, find out if these people are guilty, and if they are guilty, definitely the law will definitely take in place.
Thank you so much for joining us, Joseph. That was Joseph Peter, and he was speaking to us from Kaduna, giving us the latest on that story. Well, meanwhile, the United Nations International Children's Fund has raised concerns over a severe acute malnutrition threat in some northern states of Nigeria, especially Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, as a result of Boko Haram insurgent attacks. The fund says over 440,000 children in the 3 states are at risk. CGTN's Samson Omale reports.
UNICEF says the malnutrition situation has reached global emergency, which needs local and international attention to salvage the situation. The fund's nutrition specialist, Abigail Nukuri, says the problem of malnutrition is worsened by the inability of local and international health and rescue workers to access some communities in Borno State due to the recent increase in insurgent activity. The malnutrition crisis comes as the Nigerian military closes offices of humanitarian organizations like Mercy Corps International and Action Against Hunger, claiming they have been aiding and abetting Boko Haram activities. Folade Olutoyin works for the Search for Common Grounds with offices in Maiduguri.
The report from UNICEF on malnourished children is an alert to Nigeria. It's not only even the Northeast. But the Northeast situation is so peculiar because there are a lot of things working against people. And I'm not just talking about children alone, not living a good life. Sources of where food comes in, if you go to Northeast, are already being censored by the military. You cannot just bring in, fish, things that can help their life get better. Water is not readily available. These are sources of survival for people.
UNICEF says over $12 million is required to close the gap for ready-to-use therapeutic food for malnourished children. Samson Omale, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
Well, Nigeria says it values its friendship with China and looks forward to a stronger partnership in the near future. A reception by the Chinese embassy in Nigeria was held to celebrate the 70th anniversary of its founding of the People's Republic of China.
I'm impressed about everything that China has done, ranging from the areas of agriculture, industrialization, technology, you name it. I mean, China has recorded tremendous successes and achievements in all spheres of life. I mean, what I see in China is that anything is possible. Now, as you celebrate, I can only wish the Chinese people, like we would say, more grease to their elbows, and so that they will continue to be a source of inspiration for countries such as mine.
From the founding of the People's Republic and the Communist Party of China, and how it was able to unite the Chinese people around, a common direction, I think was quite remarkable. Today, China is one of the most successful economies in the world. It is a stable, peaceful, and friendly nation to everyone. China never goes to war with anyone. China invests in people, China invests in nations, and China encourages every country to develop along its own path. And for many of us that are Africans and are from developing countries, the rise of China gives us a lot of encouragement.
A similar event was also held in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. Speaker of the Ethiopian House of Federation, Kyria Ibrahim, hailed China's achievements over the past 7 decades in poverty reduction and technological advancements, among others. The deputy chief of AU staff also expressed gratitude towards China's commitment to development and its good relations with Africa.
China will never close its doors to the world, and it will only become more and more open. A stable and prosperous open China will definitely bring more opportunities to other countries and contribute to global peace and development.
As Africans, we really appreciate and commend the effort, the commitment of China's people. When we look what they made as improvement, even in the life, in the construction, in the relation in the international community, we are really, really proud from our friends from China because they work hard, and we need to learn from others.
Absolutely. Thanks to the contribution and support from the government of China, we are better placed to continue to support the response to eliminate or control the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And this is not the first time that China is supporting Africa. Congratulations to the People's Republic of China. We are very appreciative of the collaboration and friendship between the People's Republic of China and Africa as a whole, especially for the collaboration to advance public health for the continent, which is a security issue across the world.
Well, ties between China and Africa have over the years extended to the education sector. Across the continent, numerous Confucius Institutes have been established as part of this initiative. One Kenyan who received a scholarship to study in China is now teaching local workers Chinese. Wilkes Tanyawa reports.
How do you say hi to them when you meet someone in the morning? It's good you can use.
In this classroom, students echo every word the teacher says. The sounds are new, the words foreign. They're learning Chinese and have entrusted their learning to a teacher who has walked this path before them. A few years ago, Peter Gikonyo was sitting right where his students are now, learning the building blocks of Chinese. An English and literature student at the University of Nairobi, he watched as the Confucius Institute was established and saw students at the institute win trips to study in China. He wanted to go too.
They used to take their students or the students from the choir to China for some, what they call summer camps. So I thought maybe I can one day go to China. How do I go about going to China?
Peter enrolled at the institute. His diligence in class earned him a coveted scholarship.
Now when we got the scholarship, we went to China. I did a city called Tianjin. So in a school called Tianjin Normal University, Tianjin Shifan Daxue. Then that's another chance I got now to further my language, the Chinese language.
Now he has returned to share his knowledge. Peter's students today all work at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The Kenya Airports Authority has sponsored its staff to learn the language for 3 months to enable them to communicate with Chinese travelers.
Most of the time there's a lot of language barrier. We are not able to communicate, so you realize at times you use the sign language, but if we now learn the Chinese language, we'll be able to communicate with them effectively.
They're making slow, steady progress, but it isn't always easy.
Like that. The way we write and the way they write is totally different.
The color of the paper is white. So color.
Peter is one of an increasing number of students who have benefited from the cooperation between the two countries.
Colors just, colors just, so.
Hundreds of students have passed through Nairobi's Confucius Institute and have secured jobs working in local industries as translators or in Chinese companies. Over 100,000 Kenyans have secured employment in Chinese companies, and some, like Peter, are passing on the skills. As Kenya and China continue to cooperate in the education sector, the language provides a bridge, bringing the two countries closer. For 3 hours every week, students assemble at this classroom to learn Chinese. These lessons help to break down language and cultural barriers and are also preparing the students for a multicultural future. Wilkes Tanyawa, CGTN, in Nairobi, Kenya.
And in Uganda, university students have also been picking up Mandarin to expand their horizons and strengthen their resumes. The country's Confucius Institute says already over 10,000 university students have benefited from studying the language. Leon Sayanga reports from Kampala.
A new culture and a new language. Students here at Makerere University's Confucius Institute are being taught all things Chinese. Almost all of them are now able to speak Mandarin.
If I'm in a Chinese restaurant and I want to ask for food, I would say, Fu Yuan, Wo Kai Dian Tai Ma.
1, 2, 3, 4. That is 1 up to 5.
The Confucius Institute was established 5 years ago, where university students have been learning the Chinese language. In this class, the students have been learning about Chinese food. They hope that learning Mandarin will give them more opportunity to study and work abroad. Mebona Agege is one of many young Ugandans who have benefited already. She will spend 4 years in China pursuing a master's degree.
I have a lot of dreams. I want to be a public relations officer on an international level, but when I am able to speak an international language, of course, like Chinese.
Educators hope the increased access to the Chinese language and culture will also build better relations between Uganda and China.
It is important for us to promote mutual understanding. For our Chinese, we are very open to learn other language and other culture, and we also the peoples of the other nations to know better of us.
More than 10,000 students have qualified from here, and with the growing popularity of the Chinese language, more students are expected to join. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Makerere University, Uganda.
We move to Ghana now, where access to quality digital television programming is growing steadily. The country is looking to migrate from analog to digital broadcasting by 2020. As CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports, Chinese media company StarTimes is hoping to strengthen partnerships with local stations in Ghana to provide affordable digital television experiences for many citizens.
Daniel Dunyo and his family are watching their favorite Ghanaian movie on digital television. It's only accessible on pay TV using the StarTimes decoder.
They have interesting story, a love story. And it's one of French channels. Yeah, it's one of and the local channels like Adepa, which we have those local story inside.
Ghana failed to meet the deadline for global migration from analog to digital broadcasting in 2015. Now, the government is collaborating with Chinese media company StarTimes to complete its digital migration by 2020. This home has been using the StarTimes decoder for over a year. They enjoy 100 channels, including local Ghanaian television programming. StarTimes launched its operations in Ghana in 2016 to provide affordable pay TV services. This year, the company partnered with the Chinese government to provide satellite TV to 300 homes in Ghana for free. It's part of a wider initiative to increase access of digital TV across the country, especially for its live football productions.
We always try to help Ghana football since we came to Ghana, and we brought the most advanced OB1 in Ghana. So we produced a lot of matches. Like in 2017, we produced around 50 matches in a year. And all the matches we show it on free-to-air.
Some independent broadcasters, however, are kicking against the government's plan to commit the country's digital television infrastructure to one company. They want the government to open up the sector to more competition.
The government Ministry of Communication would want to do this by some kind of dictate. We have made input, but we believe that the input had not been considered. And so because government want to do it in a particular direction and the private sector want it done in another direction, this has brought about an elongated period of discussion.
Currently, over 4.6 million households have access to free-to-air television, according to data from the Ministry of Communications. Some analysts say many Ghanaians will not be able to afford the services of pay TV companies. But Ghana's government says it's on the path to fully migrating to digital broadcasting. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, it's time for us to take a short break, but we have more news for you. Here's what's coming up. What Uganda is planning to do to attract more international tourists.
It is Chinatown. Against the odds, the People's Republic of China was founded 70 years ago. Since then, it has aspired for change, both at home and abroad. What is driving this endeavor, and how has it managed to evolve with the times? We will look back, and in a new era. The nation is forging new missions and visions. We will look ahead. Tune in to our exclusive coverage of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China.
to code in a simple way.
Together with other young people, we're able to make this difference.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Well, Uganda marked World Tourism Day with a call for more investment in this sector. It wants to see even more jobs created within the industry, which currently employs over 600,000 people in hospitality, tours, and safari sectors. Tourism is also the country's top revenue earner, contributing around $1.6 million annually. CGTN's Michael Baleke reports.
Uganda is focused on increasing employment in the country's tourism industry. A recent population census shows about 6% of young people in Uganda are unemployed. Tour operators say the potential in tourism is still untapped, and if utilized well, there are huge opportunities.
If you look at our 10 national parks and 12 game reserves combined, you still have less than 1,900 rooms within the national parks. And this is small compared to even just a country like Kenya, which Masai Mara alone would probably be having another 500 beds by the end of the year.
Uganda has seen a steady increase in visitor numbers from about 800,000 tourists a decade ago to around 1.4 million arrivals now. And with more visitors, hoteliers say opportunities to create more jobs will also increase.
This is an industry that is growing, and it is growing really fast, with a lot of potential for employment. The value chain is extremely long, from the local person who sells their tomatoes to the hotels, to the beer companies, the telecom companies who are supplying us with Wi-Fi. The value chain is really large.
But safari operators warn the country needs to invest more into tourism schools to improve skills in hospitality.
If you look at Uganda's major jobs into hospitality have been, taken on by the Kenyans, South Africans, and Indians. And so we're saying let's have one institution in Uganda, for example, that can train Ugandans to compete for jobs.
International hotel chains like Radisson Blu and Marriott have also recently opened shop in Uganda, hoping to tap into the growing visitor numbers, and this still offers more jobs in the country. Uganda's Ministry of Tourism says the potential to create more jobs in the tourism sector is extremely large, and with more investment in tourism, the country hopes many of its jobless young people will find employment in the sector. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
We'll move to Ethiopia, where the creators of a new phone application are hoping to help street-level workers to find jobs. Its key function is to provide a platform for people looking for job vacancies that don't need either a license or a certificate. By logging into the app, job seekers have access to the contact details of potential employers. The app is expected to open up the job market by helping informal job seekers become visible. CGTN's Kaleto Anjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
This vacancy notice board in Addis Ababa is always busy.
I come here every day, many days, but today a little paperless. Today is very little. Before this time, I see more and more paperless.
Other people hire newspapers for less than $1 to read through the vacancy pages.
Most people come to here to watch job vacancy because in online internet, the internet connection is very weak. This is the first reason. The second reason is some organizations have not website, so they post their job vacancies here.
But this caters mainly for people seeking jobs that require certain levels of education. Mamil Masresha wants to help people looking for less formal employment. She has developed the Sira app. Ideally, a job seeker needs a smartphone to use it.
The employer, they need to provide their company details, very simple. They can just feed in, and then they must categorize their company, the industry type, and then they must have their location set. And then the job seekers, they need to tell, or they need to describe where they want to work and what title they want to work on.
Those that can't afford a smartphone
And then
can
press
access
the
the
restart
application through computers in internet cafes. In just a year, the app has 3,000 employers and 10,000 job seekers registered. The team also helps people present themselves in the best light.
Now we're adding a CV creator for advanced, and we want to make it very standard because some CVs, they don't even put the dates, they don't know how to make it the CV and everything. We're just going to launch that feature. And also we have a rating system that we're going to add, that job seekers can be able to rate the employers and employers can be able to rate the job seekers.
The challenge for unemployment remains high for Ethiopia. At least 3 million people are out of work, and around 7 million more are expected to enter the job market soon as young people leave education. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, has an ambitious plan of creating 3 million jobs over the next 12 months while cutting government red tape to encourage a new wave of entrepreneurship. It may take more cooperation with such innovation like the Sira app to be able to turn the page on high unemployment. Colette Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Tunisia has hosted an International Artificial Intelligence Challenge. A double hackathon for AI and machine learning was organized to build solutions in many domains. The aim is to create innovative ideas and solve real challenges by using artificial intelligence. CGTN's Adnan Shiwashi has more.
Over 1,000 software engineers, developers, artificial intelligence experts, and students gathered at Redis Sports Complex for a 3-day machine learning and AI challenge. The first 20-hour hackathon was purely an AI and individual machine learning challenge. Participants worked on 3 themes: predictive analysis, AI vision, and neurolinguistic programming, NLP.
The idea is very simple. We want to make Tunisia a hub of machine learning and AI. We believe Tunisia can be a leader in its region, in Africa and in the Arab world. So this event is the materialization of what we think is possible. So it is a record in the region. We have more than 1,000 participants on a pure machine learning and AI challenges. This is a record in Africa, a record in the Arab world.
For the first time, developers used original and official Tunisian datasets from the government and the private sector to come up with real use cases for real problems.
So we prepared 6 use cases that they have worked on, primarily around artificial intelligence applied to predictive analytics, computer vision, and natural languages processing.
The second challenge is a team startup-based competition focused on AI, ML-related technologies. Each team should find a new solution to fix real problems.
The event attracted tech entrepreneurs, researchers, and PhD holders from more than 20 countries to share knowledge and to learn new skills.
The competition is fierce. It contributes to artificial intelligence development in the region.
I see this competition as being one of the forefront of, the entire impact that it's going to leave behind, because AI is the future.
Competitors created a model that can understand the Tunisian dialect using the Tunisian dialect dataset. They trained the model on the multi-turn response selection task and delivered significant test results, revealing how far the model can deal with this North African dialect. The solutions to the Tunisian dialect challenge are the first steps in the field of Tunisian language processing models. The AI Hack Tunisia 2019 was organized by Google, InstaDeep, Expensia, and in partnership with the Tunisian government. It attracted the most brilliant developers in the region. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Time for us to take a short break. Here's what's coming up. We sample a popular delicacy in Ghana in our continuing focus on Africa's favorite snacks.
The newly upgraded CGTN website offers optimized coverage of China and international affairs, as well as distinct voices from around the globe. Be the first to know the biggest political news and discover the background to the major decisions. Decode China with a different perspective and get a better understanding of how China sees the world. Go beyond the news with sharp opinions on the events shaping today's world and reveal a China you have never seen before. Listen to entrepreneurs for in-depth analysis of the economy and touch the pulse of new technology via our hands-on videos. Travel back in time with CGTN to learn about China's past and immerse yourself in Chinese culture to discover the stories behind Kung Fu. Get the latest news on Chinese lifestyle, including travel, sports, and nature. Regular productions including Ask China put high-ranking officials on the spot, while C-Lab presents new ways of storytelling via cutting-edge technologies, and Global Stringer delivers unique videos from China and beyond. Take a look at the world from a different angle. See the difference.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Well, plantain chips are becoming a popular snack in Ghana's streets and are often sold in traffic jams, providing jobs for many young people. Companies are now packaging this light snack and stocking supermarkets with the hope of exporting it to other countries in the future. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rafah reports from the streets of Ghana's capital, Accra.
With just 1 cedi or its equivalent 18 cents, one can grab this plantain chips on the streets of Accra. It's crispy and tastes really delicious. How do you prepare this?
We first peel the plantain and then slice it into the oil in a frying pan. That's after collecting it, then we put it in a rubber, package it, and staple it, and just also package it in this basket and come and sell it.
Tell me, how is the business going?
Sometimes it's good, it's on and off. Because nowadays the system is very hard, so it's not every day that you bring it, you'll be able to sell it all. It's good because you cannot just stay at home doing nothing or beg for money to eat. So it will be better for you to come and just hawk and get something for your living.
Plantain chips are a favorite of many people in Accra, and is mainly sold on the streets of Accra. From this stretch to the other end of the streets, you can count as many as 10 vendors. It's not only serving the taste buds of many people, but also offering employment for the youth. Realizing the huge demand of this snack, some food companies in Ghana have started packaging plantain chips in a more presentable way and are selling them in supermarkets. They are also looking at exporting this snack, bringing this Ghanaian street food favorite to the rest of the world. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, still on food-related matters, if you've ever been to Nigeria before, especially in the country's commercial capital, Lagos, chances are that you must have heard of Agege bread. It's quite popular in the city for its soft, stretchy texture and distinctive taste. So just what makes the bread so popular? CGTN's Deji Badmos has more.
Freshly baked from the oven, Agege bread. Waiting to buy them off hot and fresh are these women. They come to bakeries like this every morning where they get their supplies before hitting the streets hawking the bread.
There's just nowhere you go to in this city that you would not find Agege bread. It's just everywhere, and it's thanks to people like this who hawk the bread all over the city. Why do people actually love it? Let me find out. So you tell me, for how long have you been eating Agege bread?
I've been eating Agege bread since I was a child.
Why do you like it? Why?
It's very delicious, it's cheap, and it's very accessible.
Very accessible because you have people like her selling the bread all over the city.
They're all over Lagos. You can find them everywhere, even in remote areas. You can find like 3 or 4 hawkers everywhere in the streets, anywhere.
So how important for you that this bread is cheap?
It is very cheap because this one is 100 naira. You can even get some for 50 naira or less sometimes. You can get 30 naira from that of 100 naira. And even the butter, you can get butter as low as 20 naira. You can get it anywhere. It's very fast. It's like a fast food for me.
Thank you very much for talking to us. So there you have it. The price is very crucial. It's one of the reasons why the bread is very popular in Lagos. And it's also one of the reasons why a lot of people eat the bread.
While it might seem just like bread, Agege bread actually represents more. It's a quick breakfast, a heavy lunch, and a late dinner for millions living in Lagos. And by eating so much of the bread, it's helping to keep local bakeries like this one open and running. There are hundreds of them scattered across the city, employing thousands of people. And when you add the street vendors into the mix, you end up with an industry that is one of the biggest employer of labor in Lagos. You could call it the Agege bread economy.
This is our family business. I was born and brought up into this business. Then I practice it. That is the work I'm doing to earn my living with my family.
Despite the popularity of Agege bread and the length of time it's been around, the production process is still not modernized. Most of the bakeries are old and do not have modern ovens.
Many problems are tied to using the modern oven. Then one, the electricity. You understand it? Then we have the fuel also. Then the maintenance is part of it. But this local fabricated oven that we use it, we power it with firewood.
This area of Lagos is called Agege, and it's actually where the bread derived its name. The first Agege bread bakery was sited here back in the 60s. So many other bakeries have since sprung up here, also baking the bread. And despite the stiff competition it has faced from other modern brands, Agege bread is still holding its own in the market. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Agege, Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, on that mouth-watering note, it's time for us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be bringing you all the sports that's making headlines. Africa gets first gold in Doha after Kenya's Chepchirchir wins women's marathon.
AfricaLive.